acknowledge all of you that have participated and have said where they're hailing from. If anybody's working from the beach this morning, we don't mind being jealous. So please feel free to go ahead and let us know. All right. So as I shared, today we're going to be talking about organizational readiness. And this is a key conversation for anyone that is really invested in successful digital transformation. And I'll tell you why as we go through the process. But just to note, guys, that this, I believe, is the make or break of digital transformation in particular. And of course, any change initiative. And what you'll also see as we're going through the slides is you'll see some statistics of the success level of digital transformation. And I have some points to share with you around that as well. So today we're going to be talking around all things people, organization, and change management. And actually, as I always say at the beginning of class, hi, I'm Stacey Hines, and this identifies some of the things I'm certified in. And ProSci is actually a change management model. So this is actually one of the areas that I am certified in, and I'm very passionate about, because change begins one individual at a time. And that does not matter whether or not it's a digital transformation or just a business transformation. It could be a policy change. Change happens one individual at a time. And I think that as you go through working with your MSMEs, one of the things that you'll start to realize is how critical it is for the leadership of your MSME organizations to be bought into the priority of individuals as a part of the change for the whole. Okay. Now, just to share our ground rules again, everyone will participate to the extent that he or she feels comfortable. You get out of the workshop what you put into the workshop. As in life, we can disagree with one another and provide feedback as long as we do so constructively and respectfully. Last session, I did have a few persons that hopped on and shared just, some things from their own experiences, and I really appreciated that. We're going to invite participation again today. It's very important. We will put on our listening hats, do that deep listening that we have come to get accustomed to, which is great. This place is where you can make all the mistakes, because we're all here to learn and grow together. And we agree to be responsible for our own behavior. So as I shared today, we're going to be talking about organizational readiness for digital transformation. And as components of that, we're going to be talking about digital culture, employee engagement, and leadership, and how that contributes to readiness, to organizational change, to people being a part of your transformation. And then we're going to talk about two methodologies that support inclusivity and support helping people along their transformation journey. We're going to consider the benefits of an organizational readiness assessment, talk about the critical role of leadership in change management, and define Agile and DevOps methodologies. Now, we're going to begin by discussing what exactly a readiness assessment is and why it's helpful. And in particular for MSMEs, this is one of the areas that may not be something that is consistent, like a policy or there's a procedure in place for this inside of the organization. Change management, I would say, is something that is just now becoming a lot more mainstream. And so being able to actually talk about readiness and understand what that is will be very helpful for you as you support our MSMEs. We're going to talk also about the roles that digital culture and leadership plays when it comes to managing change and transformation in any workplace, and provide simple and easy to recall definitions of Agile and DevOps approaches, which can be utilized in digital transformation change specifically. And we'll talk more about why it's such a, why Agile and DevOps approaches are so, not so much critical, but are so instrumental in the success of digital transformation. So first, we're going to dive into organizational readiness for digital transformation and how assessing the organization, which is, of course, the people, to see whether or not they're ready for change, right? This in particular is really, really critical. When you think about assessing an organization, you know, sometimes, especially depending on how big that company is, it might seem like, you know, boy, this may be a little bit daunting to actually figure out whether or not where people are. And does it matter? Because everybody's going to be at different stages in their own journey. So, you know, do we really need to know? The answer is absolutely yes. Why? Look at this statistic over here. It talks about the Harvard Business Review data work that they did, where they have noted that digital transformation failure rates range from 66% to 84%. You hear those numbers, guys? The range don't start below 50%, you know. The range starts at 66% to 84%. In a separate but similar study, McKinsey also identified the success and failure rates of digital transformation initiatives, and their data points showed that 72% of digital transformation initiatives fail, while 28% are successful. And the number one reason for failure is specifically related to the readiness of people. And what that shows you is that companies are not made up of, you know, are not based on the technology. It's not how good the tech is or, you know, how good the branding and the marketing is. I mean, that stuff is nice, but that's not what makes or breaks the success of change in an entity. What actually helps successful transformation is making sure that the people are ready for that change. And a key component, the number one component to making sure that people are ready, is leadership, the sponsorship and alignment of leadership, and ensuring that their people are ready for that change to take place. Now, an assessment, an organizational readiness assessment, is not just looking at the change itself, you know, like talking about the vision, the new things that are coming or the benefits of the change, etc. It has to take into consideration where each individual is in relationship to that change. And that's because any type of change in a business is going to have an impact on the people who are working there. And especially when it comes to digital transformation, if you all remember from our first session, when we were going over, you know, just some of the challenges that people face with digital transformation, one of the concerns that comes up when it comes to digital change is people feel that they're going to lose their jobs. They feel that the technology is going to come in and replace them. And so what you'll find is that immediately when persons hear digital transformation or digital change, that fear factor steps in. And what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to empower our MSMEs as the leaders of the change to ensuring that they are readying the organization so that the employees are willing and prepared to adapt to whatever new service or process the project is going to be taking on. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for that digital transformation to succeed. An organizational assessment should also consider how employees will be impacted, their level of support, and of course, the type of training that's going to be required, because everybody learns in different ways, right? You'll notice that even as we're having our training sessions, you're being engaged in different ways. And in the same way, inside of these companies, no matter how small they are, everybody learns and adapts differently. And so when going through an organizational assessment, it supports the organization in understanding, supports the leaders in understanding where each person is, what kind of training they need, what kind of support they need. Through assessing the organization, everyone can be kept in the loop and engaged with what the company is doing. I think many of us, if not all of us, at some point in time have experienced a change in a company that you work for that you didn't know was coming. You feel right-sided, you might feel left-sided, but you definitely feel blind-sided, right? And that does not leave you feeling confident and connected and willing to participate in the change. It feels very much like somebody else at the top has made some decisions and you're just being taken along for the ride. I know that in particular in government, sometimes you might feel like that, right? And so this is why the assessment for organizational readiness is so key, because what ends up happening is that it increases the personal investment of each individual team member, each individual employee in the proposed change or project, and it motivates them to want to do their part in it and not just show up, but to also do their part in a way that is excellent. Ultimately, what that does for the organization is it is going to create effectiveness, efficiency in the transformation itself. And it's also going to save the company time and money. And ultimately, hopefully, improve the probability of the success of that change. So what are some of the things that you should be thinking about when looking at assessing an organization? What are some of the challenges and opportunities? What are some of the digital challenges and opportunities, or just general challenges and opportunities that customers may be facing? Like what are some of the issues that they have that technology is going to solve that they want from the business? Right? Understanding that is going to be key, and ensuring that the organizational players understand that. You can run, when you run your assessment, you can help get insight on whether or not they actually understand the challenges and opportunities that are available. Understanding whether or not people are aware of the business driver. Why is the business striving to make a change, and how important is that change to the company? Right? So it's not just about making money, hitting those revenue targets, which we know are always critical, but what is the actual driver behind the change that is being put forward? That is something that you want to assess the organization and see, hey, do they actually understand why we're doing this? The big why, do they get it? All right. Leadership. Change begins at the top, not just in this case. In all cases, you might have a situation where you have change at the top and it begins there. And then you also have change at the bottom, and it's, top down, bottom up kind of combined. But in all aspects of change, leadership is really key. If ownership and management do not believe in the transformation, why would anyone else? Leadership, sponsorship, and alignment has been deemed as one of the number one and key things to have in place in order for transformation to be successful. And then last but not least is resource availability. In the Caribbean, or at least in Jamaica, we have the saying, give me a basket for carry water, right? Sometimes we're going into these magnificent change efforts, and the resource availability is not there. And sometimes our leaders are not present to the lack of availability of resource. So by doing the organizational assessment, you will be able to hear from the staff that they feel there is enough availability to take on the digital changes and the different resources that are going to be necessary to support a successful transformation. So organizational assessments help to shed light on where people are in all of these different areas. Now, the case study that I have put here is for a company called Innovate Corp. That's not the real name. However, the case study itself is a real case study, right? And what I want you to do is, of course, this is our first interactive experience. What I want for you to do is to read the following example. I will give you some guidance in that reading, and think about what the company did well. All right. So Innovate Corp is a service company that has recognized the need to enhance its communication infrastructure. And the whole reason behind that is because they're having missed calls, people getting transferred to wrong departments. They have all different kind of things happening. People answering on just their cell phones. They're not using the in-office phone. So they're looking to create better customer response, better sales opportunities, client interactions, and just overall efficiency. In order to achieve this, they've decided that they're going to put in a new digital phone system that's also going to be hooked up to their website so that they can have their bot online and at the same time make sure that internally they have the right system in place that will allow them to actually reach the persons that they are trying to get to. Now, the leadership has acknowledged the importance of leadership commitment and transparent communication. And so they have played a pivotal role by being the first to embrace the system. They've been talking about the benefits that the system has, not just for the company, but for each individual. You know, what's in it for you as an employee? And they've also appointed systems champions to support the change. So on the ground inside the organizations, they've highlighted some influential people that are going around and making sure that they're talking to persons about the change and bringing that insight back to the organization. They have a communication strategy that includes training and equipping employees through the support of the technology team for that transition. So they use data to showcase the improvements so call response times, dropped call reduction and department transfers. And, you know, HR worked with the IT team to ensure that when they were in training, you know, if anybody brought up any issues or challenges that they may have faced, that they would have been able to incorporate those issues in the actual reporting itself, right? In the actual training class itself, so that, you know, they're not missing out on things unexpectedly, because, you know, persons tend to report challenges at different points in time. They don't necessarily report it directly to the IT department. Sometimes they'll be in the training session and they'll be complaining about what's not working. So they did collaboration across the different departments to ensure that it wasn't missed. Whenever persons were having challenges, it wasn't missed, right? Now, as a result, employees embraced the new system with motivation. Like, they were excited about this change because they understood what was happening, why it was happening, right? They had a more seamless transition and minimal resistance, because resistance to change is one of those things that comes up, guys. And especially in digital transformation, where there is that fear factor, that unknown comes up quite a bit. The organization achieved enhanced internal and external communication. And this, of course, translated into improved client satisfaction and streamlined collaboration across the company. Now, this case study is one that shows that the company spent time looking at where individuals were in their change readiness, right? They have a new system that they needed to put in place because they saw how it was affecting their customer experience. They saw how the technology could help to enhance that. They also would have observed how they're missing out on potential opportunities, because if people are calling to actually connect with the company and make a purchase and not getting through, then clearly you can see where that would be a challenge, right? So my question for you, for those of you who are ready to take on this challenge, right? I'm going to launch a poll, and I just want you to identify what are some of the key actions that Innovate Corp took to support organizational readiness for their new phone system. This poll is set up in a way where you can actually select more than one thing. So based on what was shared, what do you think the company really did well? Like, which one of these things, maybe it's more than one, which one of these things do you think they did to really ensure that the change took off. And keep in mind, guys, that there are a couple of key activities that I mentioned that are critical activities and actions to support successful change. All right, so I have 3 persons that have responded so far. Yep, 4. Okay, great. 6. All right, here we go. You guys are chiming in now. Yes. Training and support is leading. I see that. That's interesting. Followed closely by articulating benefits. Yeah. Okay. I give just another few minutes and a few seconds here for a couple other persons to chime in. All right. Yeah, training and support is still leading, articulating benefits. Okay. Let me see what's happening in the chat here. Get a shared vision. Okay, somebody's adding to the list. A shared vision. Somebody added to the list of things. Creating a shared vision. Thank you, Sonia. All right, 5 more seconds, guys, and then we're going to close out the poll and share your answers. Okay, Catherine said all of the above. All right. I'm going to share the results now so that you can see. Okay, so training and support won hands down, which is really interesting. Training and support won hands down, followed very closely, well, not even very closely, maybe half amount, by articulating the benefits and then encouraging adoption and then leading by example. That's really interesting. So I do agree with Catherine that that drop, she said, all of the above. Yes, all of these items, they actually incorporated, which was important. I am, however, surprised, guys, that the leading by example didn't get more votes because, as shared, leadership in transformation and leaders actually talking the walk, walking the talk are critical to change initiatives. Right now, training and support is very crucial. And what you'll find, however, is that if employees get trained on something and they don't see where their manager or their CEO or the company's leadership is actually exemplifying that change, then I can tell you they'll be smarter, but they're not necessarily going to be bought into the transformation. Right? And so while it is essential for us to put forward that training, like training is essential, when you have that buy-in, that readiness piece, you will find that you'll have more persons coming along for the change because of the leadership example and that encouragement from the leader, right? And so as you are working with your MSMEs, I really want to ensure that you are emphasizing how critical it is for their leadership as they look towards introducing digital transformation to their organization. Thank you so much for your participation, guys. You guys are really great at participating and sharing. So looking forward to maybe opening the mic a little bit later on in class and taking some insight from you there. Yes, Sonia, you actually said it right there. If you are a part of it, you will feel empowered. Absolutely. Now, let's talk about leadership and change management. So that setup was perfect because we're moving straight into considering how culture plays a role in the workplace and how leadership in change and the engagement of employees affects building that digital culture. Now, in the Digital Culture Challenge, which is referenced in your student manual, the authors stress the importance of culture in the success of digital transformation. And when you look at the survey that is placed here, 1,700 people, including executive managers and employees from 8 countries, were surveyed, and 62% considered culture to be the biggest hurdle in digital transformation. Now, why do you think that is? We talked about it a little bit earlier. You can drop your thoughts in the chat from your own experience, maybe. Maybe you are currently feeling that challenge in the digital transformation of your company that you're a part of, even if you are the owner and leader of your company, right? So what is it that you have experienced that you feel it's like, boy, I really see how this lack of a digital culture or having a digital culture has made this harder or easier? One of the things that you recognize is when we talked at the first session about having a digital strategy, is we talked about culture eating strategy for breakfast, right? Because the truth is that you can have the best plan, just like how you can have the best tech. And if the culture, if the people are not aligned, you would have spent a whole lot of time and money building out this amazing strategy, this amazing plan, and it just fails. Okay? And so culture, which is made up of people, right, and how we interact and relate to each other, culture is critical in the success of any strategy, and especially in the success of a digital transformation strategy. Digital culture consists of customer centricity, innovation, data-driven decision-making, collaboration, openness, a digital-first mindset, agility, and flexibility. So there are lots of different aspects here that are identified as key components of a digital culture. And truth be told, one of the main things that's here, I mean, all of them are really important. Customer centricity, having that outside-in perspective, data-driven decision-making, especially now that we have so much data available to us, right? That is actually so key to even enabling cultural change. The example that we did earlier in the case study, inside of that organization, one of the things that happened is when we took them through the first assessment, when we were doing the whole, PBX changeover, it was a digital phone system changeover. And when we did the first assessment, we had such little, less than 10% of the employees participated in the assessment. And so we had to get our digital change agents. Remember, we talked about those systems champions on the ground. We had to get our systems champions to go around and actually talk to people about the culture, about our digital transformation, about all of those things. And then when that happened, and we did the assessment a second time, we had 70% participation. And so culture is not something that somebody's going to walk into the organization and just have. It's something that you have to invest time, energy, and effort in, right? It's not just a 5-minute process. It's a year-long, several years process. It involves vision and visible leadership involvement. You see the leadership thing come back again, right? Investment in digital skills, empowered employees, and key performance indicators, those KPIs that measure behaviors. And you know what was such a beautiful experience as well, ladies and gentlemen? There was a staff meeting that was conducted after the new digital phone system went live. And we were actually able to show the entire staff their first round of assessment, the first participation, and then show them the second round of participation and the difference that it made by being able to show them this data and say, hey guys, we knew we could not move forward with this change unless we had over 60% of you saying you were ready. And they felt so included when we were able to actually reveal to them that we are taking the feed. We're not just doing these random assessments. No, your input is valued. And so we are measuring, as the leaders of this change, we are also measuring how we are getting the message across. We're measuring how you are feeling, and we want to be able to share that with you, right? So Julia has contributed something to the chat. She says, culture, this is what we always did, and this is what we are comfortable with. Without clear direction and information to create a change in mindset, there is resistance. And to the employee, they feel disrespected, as though something is being forced on them without proper introductions or requesting feedback to ensure they understand and have the necessary resources to comfortably transition. Absolutely, Julia. Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. You know, it's funny because sometimes we really don't consider, and it's not because we're being malicious, you know. I think just from a leadership perspective, sometimes as leaders, especially when you're supporting large organizations or organizations, no matter the size, that are going through change, sometimes we forget that sensitivity element, that vulnerability element of the people, right? And so, correct, Catherine, it has to be a two-way street where everyone, and that's a capital everyone, has to feel included. Oh, I just love it. You guys are great. Like, I mean, you're just on it. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So how do we build a digital culture? How do we do that? First and foremost, by clearly defining the digital transformation. So that North Star, that vision, I think somebody in the chat mentioned it earlier, that vision of transformation, we have to make sure that that is clear. Encouraging leadership qualities within employees to help to lead the shift or the change, and focusing on hiring people for qualities that contribute to the culture and changing operating models, right? And this is also really key, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of the persons that are in the organization, as well as the persons you're bringing into the organization. So you want to hire for your future state. You want to hire for your transformed state, so that while the persons who are already in the organization going through change towards this future state, towards this North Star, you're complementing them, you're supporting them by bringing in new persons who can add to that energy, to that vibrancy, to that thinking, that digital mindset, that digital culture, right? You want to make sure that you are adding to that and supporting that with your new hires. In particular, if you are bringing in persons who are going to be leaders for that particular change that you're putting in place. So not just looking at, okay, we want to make sure that new hires are great and skilled, but you want to make sure that anybody that's coming in to play a critical or leadership role in the transformation initiative, that they too are change agents, that they too are embracers of culture and change, that they have that mindset that you're already trying to develop inside the organization, right? By treating digital transformation as a cultural change, organizations can help their employees focus on the aspects of their work that can be streamlined. All right. Now, change management is crucial for every single individual in the company. And in particular, it is crucial when supporting leadership in any major change, because if you aren't clear on the direction that is being taken, and you aren't clear on the principles and processes for navigating a significant change, then it's going to be difficult for the leaders to actually sponsor that change, to own it, to be able to communicate the benefits of it. So this understand, plan, implement, communicate, that path of change management is key in ensuring that everybody in the organization, especially leadership, recognizes the different things that have to be taken on in order to create effective change. So change management, the discipline, is a structured approach to implementing change in an organization. And I have been a part of organizations that have had change implemented without a change management professional. And I've also been a part of organizations that have had change management professionals, or even if HR goes out and gets change management certified, they are supported by an actual structured process or model, right? And because change can be a painful process, it's very helpful when you are able to communicate change in a way that people can see a path. They understand the steps to the change. They can see themselves in the change, and they can understand their role in creating the success for that transformation. And change management really helps to be able to do that. In order for change to be successful, leaders should be able to inspire trust, effectively communicate at every stage of the change journey, possess emotional intelligence so that they can gauge the resistance, when people are pushing back, and practice strategic thinking. Because when you have a plan, you know that you're going to have a plan, and then there's going to be all the alternate plans that you didn't plan for, also sometimes known as Murphy's Law, right? That just interject itself along the way. And what this will do is it will allow leaders to strengthen their experience, to strengthen their strategic thinking, to strengthen their emotional quotient as they move through the change process. And digital transformation isn't an overnight thing. And so having change management processes and practices in place to support it is a great way to empower leaders and help and support staff members so they understand the direction that you're headed in. Now, when you think about change management, one of the key areas is communication. And we talk about change management being a structured process. So just having that structured process in place, whether or not there is a certified change agent or support person on staff, just being able to research and have that change process in place can be very supportive for the journey. So that's your first layer of communication, right? And then following that, throughout the entire process, communication is required. It has to be made clear what exactly is going to be different and what is going to stay the same. It has to be made clear what is going to be required from all the persons, right? It has to be made clear that North Star, it has to be reiterated over and over again. Sometimes it's said that when you tell somebody something 7 times, like if you're implementing a new strategic set of objectives and you talk about it 7 times, you're just in the beginning stages of having to talk about it again, right? Because persons have several things that they're thinking about or managing. And so you're just having to keep that communication iterative over and over, making sure that you are talking to people on a different medium. So whether it is you're running a workshop, whether it is you are doing polls and surveys, whether it is you're doing focus groups, you have all these different myriads of ways that you're going to be engaging employees so that you can translate that broader digital vision into compelling and tangible business outcomes to which employees can relate, feel accountable, and attack like you want them to feel like this is mine. I own this, right? This is not a change that just my leaders are putting in. This is something that I am owning, right? And when you're empowering employees in this way, you're giving them a feeling that they have a say. And if you recall, literally, what Julia was saying earlier is that they feel like they have a say, not that something is being forced on them, right? And so it is key to empower employees by giving them that opportunity. If you give people support in the early days of a change by listening deeply to their concerns and questions without being dismissive or overly reassuring, they'll feel heard and supported. Now, once the digital change is underway, because you're going to start with vision and talking to them about it and what their role is and the benefits, etc. But once it started, right, if employees are not consistently communicated with, resistance can be created. Also, if employees are assessed only on what you expect to be the success points or the key performance indicators, then resistance can be created because they'll feel that it's not about them, it's just what you want for the business, right? You want to ensure that employees feel that they're contributing and that they're not being judged on whether or not the transformation succeeds. Now, for some companies, especially when you're in the financial services industry or you're in a high intense or high turnover kind of highly intense or high turnover kind of industry, technology is deemed to be a very intense industry, as an example. pharmaceuticals, anything that requires just a lot of external visibility or has high customer touch points. Sometimes these organizations can have a culture of, succeed or die, right? And while I will say that, yes, you want to make your key performance indicators a crucial component of where you're communicating to team members about success, our MSMEs need to also ensure that they are keeping to the forefront the value that each team member brings, and that showing that they are adaptable and willing to participate fully in the change efforts is also something that should be recognized as the transformation is underway. Now, before we get into part 4, which is Agile and DevOps, I have another poll that I'm going to run. And this one is really to gauge the experience that you all are having with the companies that you support. Do you believe that Caribbean MSMEs are already embracing a digital culture? Based on what we've just spoken about as digital culture, and I'm actually going to see if I can go back to that slide. Let me see if it's here. Right? Just a reminder of what a digital culture is. A digital culture consists of customer centricity, innovation, data-driven decision-making, collaboration, openness, a digital-first mindset, agility, and flexibility. Do you believe that our Caribbean MSMEs are already embracing a digital culture? Very curious to see what you think about this, because my experience has been what I would consider a mixed bag. Some persons have been very embracing, like they actually want to experience the benefits that technology has to offer, but they may not necessarily know where to start, how to start, etc. But culturally, they have the mindset that they want to be able to understand and use data to support their change and to support the business, etc. But maybe they don't have the knowledge. Then on the other hand, I think you have companies that have been around for a bit longer. Some government entities that it's just, it's just difficult. It's just like, oh, that digital thing is no, so I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't know anything about that. I don't even go on social media. Like, you might. So I've been having a mixed bag experience. Some persons thirsty for it, ready for it, hungry for it, wanting to pursue. And then others who are, I can take it or leave it. Some persons who aren't sure, etc. Before I close out the poll, I'm going to see here, we have a couple of comments. Leoy says, I think that most companies are trying to integrate digital tools into business operations. And while some companies are trying to onboard staff, Caribbean businesses tend not to focus on training and development for staff. So adoption tends to be very chaotic. Yes, Leoy, I can agree with that. And I will also add to that, where they're not necessarily interested in investing, whether it's time or money, in change management efforts, ensuring that they are employing support for these transformation efforts. So I'm going to end the poll now. Great. I had really wonderful participation from all of you. I'm going to share the results. It's almost 50-50. We have 48% of you saying yes, our Caribbean MSMEs are already embracing a digital culture, and 52% saying no. I would love to hear from someone who said yes and someone who said no. If you don't mind sharing what your thoughts are. I'll leave a couple minutes.
Okay, so I could
Any volunteers? Someone who said
clearly?
Yes and someone who said no.
Can you hear me clearly?
That has written here in the chat. Her response was no. Most MSMEs are perhaps willing to embrace digitization, but the culture aspect is lacking because the collaboration aspect is often missing where effective change management comes in. Oh, absolutely. That's a really great. Thank you very much for that, Julia. Sonia says, I observe main focus on technology and not really culture and mindset. And this is one of the reasons why, guys, that when we're talking about building this digital culture, it's so not just about the tech. And for many of the consultants that actually come in to help MSMEs, which you all have to make sure you're making them aware of, right? As MSMEs are looking for support, we really want to ensure that they're getting support, not just around the technology, but around the transformation as a whole. What are the key components to the digital transformation as a whole? Because you can have the technology and the transformation fails. It will just sit on a shelf and be nice and dusty in a few years, right? Yes, I also agree with that, Mandisa. For MSMEs, the focus is more on digital marketing, not necessarily internal processes. And a large part of that is because digital marketing has become so prevalent. And so what ends up happening is they think it's all about the brand and the visibility and making sure that you are present, but then ensuring that the other components, so you can be present and your customers aren't happy because they order something and they don't get it, or they don't get the call, or any of those things. Being able to have that outside in perspective, utilizing the customer journey and understanding where each person is at different points is so crucial for the success of the transformation initiative. Okay, Melanie says, I responded yes, because of the effort I see some companies putting forward, especially with young people who are eager to include the tools as a way to support their employees. Thank you very much for that, Melanie. I will say, yes, I agree. I will admit that one of the driving forces behind some of these transformation efforts that have failed, interestingly enough, is because you have that blended generational experience. So you have your Gen Z, your baby boomers, your Gen X, your Gen Y, you have all these different persons now in the organization at the same time. This is the first time in history where you have so many different generations participating in the work world at the same time. And so you might have somebody that's, a baby boomer getting ready to exit the organization that is at the top leadership level or leading multiple teams as a manager, etc. And they're not really keen on transformation, right? And that's not for all of our more mature persons. I know quite a few mature persons who are very willing to adapt and have, do amazing work with tech and understand digital transformation, etc. But when you have that blended space where you do not have your senior leaders who are more mature and your Gen Zers who are now vibrant on their phones constantly, they live in this digital world. You don't have to give them a digital mindset. They literally have that, right? Day one. It's very difficult sometimes for that transformation to be successful without the change management coming in to support collaboration and learning from each side, because there are benefits to being on both sides of the fence, right? And so I think, I see the chat is blowing up. I love it. I think that, we'll have to make sure that as we're talking to our MSMEs, that we are helping them to recognize, find the skill set in all aspects of the workforce, both our more mature persons as well as our younger players, pull out the things, that the ideas and the different things that are supportive of the change that may not necessarily look the same, and see how we can create collaboration across the teams. Yes, and that is correct, Catherine. Younger people are usually more open to change, and especially technology, right? So one of the ways, guys, it's a perfect setup for this last section of our conversation today around organizational readiness and people, Agile and DevOps methodologies, right? And these two principles, methods, ways of working have become more and more popular with digital transformation. Technology is no longer just the IT guys in the corner of an organization. Technology is a part of every individual's interaction with work on a day-to-day basis. And so when we're thinking about digital transformation, being able to incorporate agile principles and DevOps principles as a part of every employee's engagement is a great way to empower them on their digital transformation journey. And interestingly enough, with change management, you can actually create a change management approach that is agile and that does actually allow you to do things on an iterative basis. Now, agile project management is an approach to planning and guiding projects that involves breaking it down into short phases called sprints or iteration. It involves constant collaboration with stakeholders because it's a cyclical process. You don't just plan everything in the beginning, execute, and then look back after the project is done. And with digital transformation being such a consistent and continuous process that can take years, for many companies, the forecast is holistic digital transformation taking anywhere from 3 to 5 years, right? Being able to be agile in that process is going to be crucial because things change constantly. And so when incorporating a change management support system or consultant, or if you're doing your own research, it's really important for you to be able to see that they are aware of the ability to do so in an agile way and aware of the principles of agile so it can be incorporated as a part of that digital transformation. Agile allows for flexibility because changes are going to come up throughout the project lifecycle, and you want to be able to incorporate the good things that come from the changes that may show up and leave out the things that no longer serve you, right? So it is well suited for complex projects and long-term projects because you're able to you're able to test it, measure it, and iterate, right? Now, Agile became popular because of software development. It's an approach that was being used in technology companies primarily. And one of the reasons, aside from its iterative nature, is because it creates collaboration between teams to solve problems. So some of the key things that you want to identify when you're thinking about Agile and DevOps principles: you want to think about individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So what are the processes that are going to be in place for this project? What are the tools that you're going to need or are going to be using during this project? And how can you implement those in an iterative or agile way? You want to make sure that you are focusing on software that works versus having comprehensive end-to-end documentation, right? And that persons are feeling that they are empowered to utilize the technology, whether or not they have read the manual end to end. Okay. You want to focus on customer collaboration, so that outside-in perspective that I talked with you about earlier, before you're focused on or over focusing on contract negotiations. So making sure that you're taking consideration of what your customers are looking for and are inspired by, feel empowered by, want to connect with you on what are you solving for them. You do that through the collaboration and consider that insight more than you are worried about the contract negotiation part. Being able to respond to change over just following the plan. In particular, if you are a part of an organization where, or you're supporting an organization that you know places heavy emphasis on project management. There's nothing wrong with project management. We need it, especially when we're now looking at digital transformation. But if the project management office is focused on just following the plan and not looking at how, as plan execution happens, the different things that come up that may require a pivot, then you may want to, say to your MSME owner, hey, you want to pay attention to the things that are coming up as you're executing the project so that you may make shifts or, a pivot as necessary, instead of just sticking to the plan if the plan is no longer serving you. All right. So DevOps is a combination of the words development, and operations. It's a process that involves collaboration between development and the IT operations teams. And of course, digital transformation initiatives is going to require a lot of collaboration between the IT operations teams and all of the other departments across the entity. The idea behind the DevOps methodology is that bringing the two teams together, which traditionally work separately from each other, produces higher quality products faster. So in its broadest sense, DevOps is a philosophy that promotes better communication and collaboration between these teams and others in the organization. So not keeping those silos that will sometimes impact the success of your transformation initiatives. The DevOps approach is often illustrated in an infinite loop because it is considered to be a continuous process of integration, delivery, testing, deployment, operations, and collaboration. So all of those aspects, right? These 6 different areas are all working together continuously. By combining 2 distinct departments and processes and bringing them together, it leads to increased transparency and concentration on automated testing. And while they may be different approaches, they share a focus on testing, productivity, and collaboration. So Agile is more iterative, DevOps is more continuous. However, it's similar elements that you are moving through both processes. When you're thinking about advising your MSMEs on applying Agile and DevOps practices to digital transformation projects, you want to make sure they understand that the iterative nature or the iterative aspects to the testing, the learning, and the measuring, and then going back through that process on a continuous basis will help to ensure success and minimize risk. The underlying values and cultural shifts that are associated with an Agile or DevOps methodology offer a new way of thinking. So we talked about that digital culture and that digital mindset, and Agile and DevOps principles will help to embed those mindset opportunities across the organization. In summary, if you're thinking about applying Agile and DevOps practices to support digital transformation projects with your MSMEs, these approaches yield greater visibility and alignment. You get faster time to market. So if you're coming in with a change, like the one we talked about earlier with the digital phone system, you are able to iteratively communicate through, maybe it is just the customer center at first before the rest of the organization is involved in the change. You're able to get to market faster with higher quality and ultimately greater value for the business because you are taking either an iterative or continuous approach to implementing that technology change. Using these approaches allow businesses to tackle projects in smaller chunks and to gain constant feedback, both internal feedback from the team members as well as from the market on whether or not changes are being accepted. Now, when you think about digital transformation, it's almost impossible for a digital transformation effort to succeed without employing these kinds of principles. And it's because it encourages an experimental approach to implementing change. Experimentation, we talk about that fail fast, fail forward, right? Allows you to learn because you are now going through a testing, right? So we talked about test, learn, you're measuring. All of those aspects of things are key tenets of DevOps and need to be key tenets of digital transformation. They are key tenets of Agile and need to be key tenets of digital transformation. Okay, so I would love to see what is going on in the chat because I see that you all have been contributing to the conversation about digital and the change that everybody is going to be empowering their MSMEs to move towards, right? Leaders also find themselves, this is from Leoy, leaders also find themselves between a rock and a hard place when determining what is actually essential to serve the business goal versus not getting caught up in the hype with the technology of the day. Tech and digital tools are so dynamic, always changing, upgrading, etc., and that's sometimes difficult to keep up with depending on the type of business. For example, Microsoft Project, been around for a good while. Organizations have already paid for the suite, but then someone in the organization may push for a new tool like Asana or Mondays, right? And as such, training the staff is going to be optimal. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And this is one of the things that I've also seen in organizations that I've supported as a part of their digital transformation, where, you know, you may have some leaders that want to try new and different things. And there is so much iteration happening now with the different technology tools. Sometimes you'll go down the path of trying a new thing, and then your technology that's embedded in the organization puts in a change that immediately makes you be like, oh man, I should have just waited, because that change kind of answers the problem. And, you know, so because the technology is going to be forever evolving, and as you would have seen with the Chat GPT launch recently, it's going to be evolving at an exponentially faster rate. And as such, we have to be agile in our thinking and determine, yes, we're going to stick with certain principles that are going to help to guide our transformation choices. And these principles are very key to the success or failure of your digital transformation efforts, because otherwise you may find yourself getting pulled in multiple directions just based on new tech that comes out. So guys, I do have one more poll that I'm going to run today. And in the interim, I'm going to ask if you have any questions to please feel free to drop them in the chat. And I have this new poll that just is asking about the most critical, which of the following, so this is a one of the following items, which do you believe is most critical based on everything that we've talked about this morning for organizational readiness and culture for digital transformation? Your 4 choices are training and support for staff, leadership, sponsorship, and alignment, the latest technology, using an agile approach to change. Are you guys not seeing the poll? Let me see if I can. I see Melanie says she's not seeing it.
Oh,
No. Okay,
sorry.
let me go back.
No poll yet.
And try again. Back. Still isn't giving me any joy. All right, so I'm going to read out to you guys, and maybe you can just drop your answers in the chat, because my poll is giving me a challenging time. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to launch. But the question is, which of the following is most critical for organizational readiness? It actually doesn't let me see if I share my desktop, if you can see it there. Can you see it now?
Can see your screen, but not the poll.
Yes, iterative. Okay, right. So which of the following is most critical for organizational readiness and culture for digital transformation? So we have the latest technology, we have leadership, alignment, and sponsorship, we have using an agile approach, using change management, training, and support. So although you aren't able to, see it, I'm just asking to just drop your answer, which one you think it is, in the chat.
Yeah, we're seeing your emails.
Latest technology, leadership, alignment, and sponsorship, using an agile approach, using change management, training, and support. All right. Okay, not seeing the options. Yeah, I was seeing that too. I'm not sure what is happening with my polls today. At least the first couple of them worked. So we have leadership, agile, Number 4. So I can see you. Yes, I can see your answers. Emails, not the polls, not the poll, pull the screen. Yeah, that's fine, guys. The primary answer for this one is actually leadership alignment and sponsorship. Leadership alignment and sponsorship is the response, because we talked about needing to make sure that our leaders are the ones that are making sure that we understand the vision, are clear on the path that we're taking, that they are walking the talk of change, of transformation, that they are ensuring that we have the resources that are necessary. And so when you are imparting all of this insight back to your change agents, back to your MSMEs, sorry, then you want to make sure that they too are feeling that they have this insight and this information available to them, right? And it's through leadership that that happens. The training and support will come. Everything else will come. Having a change management support system or person might also support that. But really, if the leadership is not aligned, then it's going to be difficult for you to get that transformation initiative off the ground. All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your participation. You've been really, really great and supportive in the midst of all of the beautiful technology that we utilize on a day-to-day basis. So I look forward to seeing you next week. This is correct. We have 3 more sessions remaining, 2 next week and then 1 the week after. You will receive your manual for next week a bit early, of course, in case you want to do that weekend reading. You'll get it by tomorrow for sure. And I look forward to being able to support you on your digital transformation journey. So thanks, everybody. Take care and enjoy your weekends. Catherine says she wants to stay in touch with the rest of the group. It was so good. Awesome. Awesome. Take care, everybody.